What's up, everybody? This is Aaron Reiss with the Kansas City Star, one of the Mizzou beat writers. I'm here with my partner, another Mizzou beat writer, Alex Schiffer.
Hello.
So here we are. Anyway, we're here to talk out the Mizzou basketball season, which ended. We're both kind of tired and don't know what to do with all of our free time now, because football, spring football is not a full-time thing, and I feel like I've just been living in Michael Porter mania for forever, and now it's over. So, what's up?
Not much, as you said, kind of catching up on sleep. I've slept in a lot the past few days, just after the bear that the weekend was, really.
I know. I slept like 10 hours yesterday. It was awesome. But that was because I had slept like just on planes exclusively for the past couple of days, because I went to California to cover the women's tournament, and then they lost in a day, which I wasn't expecting, so I flew back the next day rather than on Tuesday, which is what I was figured was going to happen. I was kind of hoping for it. I was hoping I'd get that extra time in California. But anyway, this podcast, we're just going to kind of talk through the Mizzou basketball season, because it was, if nothing else, it was quite unique. I was thinking about this. I mean, it really was like no other season in history in a way, because you never had a player like Michael Porter at the end. So I mean, I guess we'll start there. The NCAA tournament game. I figured they would lose.
Did you, though? Because you were kind of back and forth.
I guess I don't know.
Pretty back and forth on it.
Yeah, that's true. But I think we all were. But I guess I wouldn't say I was surprised by the way it happened.
No, I guess not. After watching Florida State take out Xavier yesterday, I think I appreciated Florida State more as a team than I did going into Friday, because I kind of looked at Florida State on Friday as well. They underachieved when they had these high NBA draft picks like Jonathan Isaac and guys like that. Dwayne Bacon's the other one I'm thinking of. And I saw them take out Xavier, and I was like, okay, I guess I didn't give them the credit that they deserved, because they kind of slipped into the tournament, limped in a bit like Missouri. I think they were more inconsistent than Missouri in the regular season. And then you watch them take out a number one seed like Xavier, and I was like, okay, I guess we slept on them a little more than I expected. But Missouri had no depth. They had to avoid foul trouble. Neither of those things did them any favors. And I thought in the second half, when they got it to 6, they were going to tie it or take the lead briefly and then lose the game.
Yeah.
But they made it a little more interesting than I thought they would. I guess in the second half is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think that, like, you didn't mention that Florida State was even more inconsistent than Mizzou, but I think the difference, and something that Vahe, our columnist at the Star, who was working with us there, pointed out was, like, this Mizzou team that played in that game was literally different than any other Mizzou team that we saw all year, because you still are adding Michael Porter, and then you're also missing Jordan Barnett, who, for as inconsistent he's been all season, he didn't miss a single game prior to that one. And he was the second best defender. He was one of the most reliable scorers, at least when he was playing. I mean, like, he had the chance to have big games, and they needed someone else in that game. It was clear. I mean, Mike the offense had no flow again. I think that was what was kind of surprising to me, was not that it still looked like it lacked rhythm, but that they spent the whole week talking about how it was going to be better than that Georgia game, and he'd figured stuff out, and then he clearly had it. It clearly looked no different than it had like a few days before.
I agree completely. My only takeaway that was an improvement from Georgia, and I don't even know if you call it an improvement, in the Georgia game, it was Jonte and Mike were the only ones scoring. Cassius and Barnett were invisible. Right. And in Florida State, it was Mike and Cassius were scoring. Jonte was invisible, and obviously Barnett, we don't even know if he was in the building. Right. And I think that was it, is that Mike is the only constant in those two. I did think he looked better against Florida State than he did against Georgia. He kind of had some aggressive charges to the rim.
Yeah, he had those coast-to-coast plays that were really nice.
He had a few Euro steps to kind of get around the defender. But really, he was exhausted, and he still couldn't take over a game the way we knew he needed to for them to win or go on any kind of run. And the Jordan Barnett absence really killed him. I don't know if they beat Florida State with Jordan Barnett, but I definitely think it's a much closer game. And
with him than without him.
With him than without him, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I also think something that I thought should be said is, I even felt this way for a long time. Michael Porter is does he really care, or is he just doing this because like
for the attention,
for the attention, or because his own NBA draft stock and whatever. And I think it's weird. I've kind of I feel very solid now in saying this at the end after, as you can kind of put everything in perspective, is that I don't think he was just toying with a fan base, and I don't think he just did it to try to show he was back or improve his draft stock. Because one, I don't think that happened, but two, I think
agreed.
I think the best way to look at this is that sure, did he maybe think that? Actually, I don't even know if I think he thought he was going to help his draft stock or prove he wasn't soft or something. Because I think it's not like he didn't know. I mean, and it's not like everyone else probably couldn't see that he clearly wasn't himself. I'm sure the same way he looked in practice is how he looked in the games. Not able to dunk the ball in real competition and not really attacking the rim with the same amount of vigor and struggling to dribble and all those things. But I think it was clear after that NCAA tournament game that he did really care. I mean, you can say a lot about how things were handled and whatever else, and we could discuss that forever, but I don't think there's any doubt that he at least did really care. Well, I don't think that means he comes back. I'd be floored if he came back. But I think that it is worth, if not commending him, at least pointing out that, it wasn't like he was just doing this for himself. And in a whole season that seemed, dominated, or at least it was easy to pin him as sort of this selfish guy who was taking away attention from his teammates and whatever else. All of which is true in its own way. You can't argue that he didn't at least want them to really win, and I think he was doing the best he could in the way he knew how, which is the problem. Is he only knew one way to play, which was to be this volume scorer, but he wasn't physically able to really be that.
I agree. Someone had texted me the other day and said, "Did you think that? Was it worth Mike to come back?" And I said, "Well, first, I don't really think he had a choice. I don't even think Konzo had a choice because
when Cullen Van Leer went out, that was it. I mean, he had to play. He would have looked so bad if he didn't try to play, only he was healthy.
Yes, and that's what I kind of said was that I don't really think anybody had a choice in this, and because the depth became what it was, I think it's a different conversation if Blake Harris is still there and the Barnett suspension never happened. Even though he had played before that, I think it only put a bigger emphasis on what if he didn't come back. And my two biggest things going forward are because this was never done before, in college basketball, where a player of this magnitude came back this late into the season. I kind of wonder the next time this situation is in a program's hands. And again, if this was Duke and they have so many players, it's a different conversation. If it was Michigan State, Kentucky, again, these are different conversations. But I'd love to see the next time a player comes back or has the option to come back this late in the season with a team that's playing well, does is there a coach that you see say, it didn't work for Missouri. We have our chemistry thing right now. We'd rather win one game in the tournament and then get knocked out than risk blowing things up, pressing the reset button going into the postseason, just as to add this player that we don't know what he's going to do to chemistry. And the other thing with Mike is, as you kind of said, I don't know if he comes back. I would doubt he does, but to me, I think that if he does really care about Missouri and about the basketball program, I don't think it would hurt him to come back just because in his career, they lost both postseason games he played in. If you want to count the Kansas exhibition game, just because they lost that too, and I thought they looked better in the Kansas game, even though they lost that.
Yeah, they were better in transition and stuff.
Yes.
And Cassius was the spot-up guy, yeah.
Yeah, even though that was before Cassius and Barnett became who they were this season, I thought they looked, with him on the floor, their best in the Kansas game, and they still lost. So my only, again, I wouldn't be surprised if Konzo would say to him, you need to go and get your money. But I think the argument for him coming back is that he'll be remembered with this weird legacy for never really playing and yet having all this impact. And yet when he did play, they lost the biggest games of the season. And I'm even counting Kansas just because to the diehard fans that hate Kansas, that might hold more weight than others.
Yeah.
And it's a weaker draft next year. And
if he's at 100% health and he's back to being better
him and Jonte could both be top 5 picks.
Yeah.
So I would say that, again, I have no idea if he comes back, but purely from the standpoint of him coming back, the benefit is they won't have as many scorers as Cassius or Barnett. Him and Jonte will already have to take a bigger offensive load, so that would kind of work more for next year's team than this year's team.
Weak draft class.
And, weak draft class. They can still get paid and everything. Mike has said there's no chance of re-injury with his back.
So, yeah, that shouldn't be a factor.
Yeah, and I wonder what teams and agents would say to him. Maybe you go number 10 now, and obviously, if there's a big difference between 1 and 10, and if you're Mike, do you want to go number 10, and maybe it's a less tanking team, than like the Kings or something like that?
Yeah.
Or do you want to just see what another year can do, and then you have this chance that they build a statue of you or something, and who knows what happens from there. And they should have more depth at point guard. They should have more capable ball handlers, and he'll have help on the wing anyway with Torrance Watson and whatnot coming in. So I don't know. I have no idea what happens. If you ask me to bet money, I don't think he comes back, but I do think that there is if he really cares about Missouri basketball argument for him coming back.
Yeah, it's true. And I think also, he really is going to have to assess the situation. I mean, the thing is, the biggest thing is he's going to get drafted. He's going to have a guaranteed contract for 2 years at least, whatever. And assuming he's not a total bust, he's a year closer than that next contract is when you actually make real money.
Yes.
So, I mean, and that also is hard to just turn away. Even if there's no chance of re-injury there, I mean, he now has been kind of, he probably, at least for the first time in his life, he said, was really sitting out, and now he knows what that feels like, and is that going to linger in his head of, I can't possibly go through that again without being paid, which it'd be hard to fault him if he felt that way. But we can go more into the future of this team in a second, but I wanted, because it was a wild year, so I think there's some other things just beyond that we should touch on. I guess, when did you feel like they weren't going to make the NCAA tournament? Because I think, when they lost to Mississippi State, I was like, I don't think so. I mean, even when they I forget who else they lost to, but there was
at A&M, Mississippi State, and who would have been the last one in that three-way stretch?
There was one at home before that.
Auburn.
Yeah, I mean, all those games, I just felt it wasn't even just that they had lost 3 in a row. It was they just didn't look like a good team, And so the ugliest of those to me was probably the Mississippi State one, but it was also just because the arena was dead. And
it's not like it's a tough place to play on the road. Yeah, I'd say that 3-game losing streak probably made me wonder if they could make it, just because, as you said, Mississippi State's not a hard place to play on the road. Auburn was good, but if they came into that game missing a guy or two, I want to say.
Yeah.
And it was a home game, pretty good crowd. And then that third one was A&M. That was a game, I thought the A&M game probably showed the most signs, just because it was a game kind of like we'd seen earlier in the year, where they go down big, they rally and either take the lead or make it a game, and then they just lay down like dogs, and it's a comfortable win.
Yeah.
And I think we saw that in Auburn. We saw that, I think, really all 3 of those games had that happen. So I thought that for a while that was just going to be them as a team. They're going to give you a good effort. They're going to play hard. And then they're going to make it interesting, but they're going to run out of steam or firepower or whatever. So I definitely think that 3-game streak was alarming. But when they rebounded with the road win at Alabama, I kind of thought, all right, Alabama's better. I was higher on Alabama at the time than maybe others were, even though they were losing, just because I really like Colin Sexton's game.
But rightfully so, it turned out in the end. I mean,
yeah.
Alabama ended up making the tournament and getting a 9 seed and winning a game.
Yeah, and when they had that 5-game win streak, it was Alabama and then the Kentucky game.
Yeah.
That kind of quickly changed my mind over from all right, they're losing to they're going to make the tournament, because those are just 2 huge RPI wins and quadrant wins to where I thought, all right, they'll find a way now. Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I don't, who do you you were most impressed with during the season? Because there's a few guys who I think, obviously, this team really, after Porter went out, had to be full of surprises in order to be as successful as it was. I mean, I think, and you can make an argument in different ways for each guy, right? Cassius was remarkably successful as a grad transfer and did more than people thought, but Jonte Porter did more than people thought, and Jeremiah Tillman did more than people thought.
Yeah, my first answer is actually going to be Jordan Geist, because, again, I think he got a hard deal from the fans just because he had the ball in a lot of late game scenarios, and that wasn't always his fault. But beginning of the season, Jordan Geis is a guy that you were kind of even wondering, is he here next year?
Yeah.
And Blake Harris was always the point guard we talked about for Missouri to be what it needs to. He's the guy that has to step up his game. He starts half the season, half of the first half of the season, and then transfers after bragging rights, and you're like, all right, well, there goes that. Terrence Phillips, I always thought was a guy that you thought could lead the conference in assists because he had such a similar setup to high school to where he played around all this talent. He barely played, and he really didn't do much at all. And then he gets kicked off the team essentially.
Yeah.
So Jordan Geis was third or fourth in the batting order. I mean, Konzo made Cassius a point guard for the season opener over him, so he was really fourth on the depth chart.
And then he ended up playing 33 minutes a game.
Yeah. So he was put in a position where he was doing more than he's capable of and more than he was ever supposed to. I remember Kim Anderson saying last year that he was recruited as an energy guy off the bench, and he had to be more than that this year. So I think if he played he was good or to solid. If he plays bad, the season might have been different. And because after him, the only other point guard was really Brett Rao. So I'd put him number one in my pecking order just because, again, he had to do more than was expected of him. I think Cassius and Barnett, they're not here without them for sure. Cassius was way more consistent than Barnett and became their unequivocal leader and had this hard work ethic and really someone that the fan base kind of fell in love with.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I have Jonte low in the pecking order, even though he reclassified. I mean, Marvin Bagley.
He was probably going to be a McDonald's All-American.
Yeah, Marvin Bagley reclassified. I saw somewhere, if you look at the history of guys that have reclassified and skipped a year, they've all done really well. If I looked at that statistic earlier in the year, I probably would have been a lot less surprised by Jonte, but
Didn't Techie reclassify?
Techie did reclassify. He's probably an exception. Yeah. But yeah, I just think that Jonte's last name is Porter.
Yeah.
If you saw him at Tolton and you saw him at Nathan Hale, you knew he was a good player. I think it was just a matter of him catching up with the pace of the game and the physicality and everything. But yeah, that's why I have him so low.
Yeah, that's true. And I think I would probably make Cassius the one because I think you're right. I mean, Jonte was probably had a chance to be McDonald's All-American. He stayed in high school, especially Tolton would average 40 and 20.
Yeah.
And that probably is conservative as an estimate. But I think, and he was, for as good as he was towards the end of the season, then he laid down another dud in the NCAA tournament, which I think shows he still has kind of that inconsistency. And Tillman's the same way. I mean, it's not like people didn't think that he had the physical ability to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And he still had the same sort of foul trouble at the end of the season. So I think Cash, for me, would be the big one, just because of how he consistently produced at a level that normally guys, when they transfer up, are far lesser players. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it's I think it was the first time ever he earned Player of the Week. It was in his
he was
career.
back to back.
He never even did it at Canisius.
Yeah,
and that's wild. So, I don't know. I think the whole thing in a way. I mean, I don't think it can be stated enough what a coaching job it was that they got to this point.
Absolutely.
I mean, you just think about the fact we're talking about he was the surprise of the year and he was the main storyline. I mean, Cassius is a nice guy and he did play really well and worked really hard, but the fact that this team got to where it did, with that being the case, with this surprise grad transfer from Canisius leading the way, kind of speaks to how dark it could have gone.
Yeah, the analogy I used to a fan in an email recently was that I thought at the beginning of the season, Konzo had a really good hand of cards at a card table, and he loses his best one early on, and he kept losing cards, with the transfers and everything, and he just kept finding a way to stay at the table and play what he had well, and then with the Barnett news, and he got Mike back, which that card didn't count for as much as it used to because of the dealer's hand. It was a really elaborate thing. It worked better over email than over podcast.
To retype these email a few times.
But just with losing Barnett and having a non-100% Michael Porter in an NCAA tournament game, you knew that a lot would have had to happen for them to advance.
Yeah.
And even yesterday, do they give Xavier the game Florida State did with Barnett back? I don't know.
Probably not.
I don't know. So I just think
Gotta be honest, I slept through that game.
Yeah.
I've been on the road a lot. I just fell asleep. but I did read about it. No, I don't think they would have beat Xavier. Because we watched Xavier up close before Mizzou played nice.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine Mizzou. I think there would have been a lot of open transition 3-pointers in that game if Mizzou had played Xavier.
No, I agree. I think Konzo did a heck of a job with this team. Something I looked up yesterday that I thought was interesting. Konzo never had a 20-win season during his first year at a coaching job, and he's never had a non-20-win season his second year at a program. So that's why I'm really curious for what happens next season, because we kind of hinted at this earlier. Really, what the Porters do
is going to dictate a lot of it. Yeah. Well, and let's talk about that then, I guess, because we've hashed the season out. So, like, if let's run through all three scenarios. Both come back.
They're a top 10 preseason
right?
team.
Yeah.
I think Mike and Jonte could be preseason All-Americans. Mike's definitely the preseason SEC Player of the Year. And assuming both are healthy and there's no
lingering issues.
We could be covering a Final Four next year or something.
Yeah, no, I agree. And they would still have one scholarship left. And I'm curious to from you. I think not like a kid is going to sign just to play with Michael Porter, although Blake Harris did. But for the most part, they're not going to sign just to play with Michael Porter for 1 year. But do you think that would, let's say they make this announcement in 2 weeks, I mean, does that add some momentum to the getting Courtney Ramey or getting somebody else?
I agree, and that's why I kind of wonder, a little off track, but the last time Missouri had a player transfer from its program was the year Damari Carroll led them to the Elite Eight. Like that's 2009, 2010. So like you look at the roster right now though, and because again, like it's still all up in the air, like Cullen Van Leer, I don't think they can let him go with a torn ACL and being an in-state kid. I think the question for him next year is do they redshirt him, or do they just have him finish out his career and that's another scholarship off the books from the Kim era? Per year staying. Geist, Konzo loves Geist. I think Konzo wants to keep Geist. Reed Nico would be a junior. Mitchell Smith is coming back from the ACL in the red shirt. I think both of those guys right now you have to keep in the fold because you don't know what's going to happen with Jonte. And you might need the body. Yeah. And Adam Wolf's a walk-on. Ronnie Suggs is a walk-on that they'll have from sitting out. But really, if you look at the team, there's really not many guys transfer candidates. And I mean, I thought Terrence Phillips would have been one, but he got himself kicked off. So, that was one. C.J. Roberts left. He was another Kim guy, technically. So, it's interesting because I don't know who would leave unless Mike and Jonte come back and they say, okay, Mike and Jonte are coming back. All of a sudden, we have these recruits that want to come here, look at it. Now we need to make room. And that's why it's going to be an interesting few weeks because if both come back, who's out there? The coaching carousel's still going. The FBI stuff, is still up in the air. So I think it's going to be an interesting couple weeks in that sense because if both do come back and your Kon's like, all right, I got to the tournament, through like a bubblegum and paperclip job and then some this year, now we can really set ourselves up and a lot of these guys add another year. So I just think right now with them both coming back, the sky's the limit. But if they both decide to come back, what does the scholarship situation look like? And do they try to add, a grad transfer point guard over a Courtney Ramey and then say 2019 we'll get a Mario McKinney? Yeah. So I wonder just how that kind of all comes together if it does.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting. I think that's not going to happen. I would be shocked.
Yeah, no, that's so okay. Yeah, we discussed that first because that's the least likely scenario.
Okay, but so then if Jonte just comes back, which I think is possible, because I think based on even someone we talked to, it's like he has the talent to be a first round pick, but maybe he's not going to be because it's not just about whether he is capable. It's like, does someone believe in him enough, or is the market there for him to be one? And I guess I'm sure the Porters will try to get a sense of that in the coming weeks, but I could see him come back. And because honestly, I mean, I would, if I was an NBA team, I'd take him in the late first round and just let him go dominate the G League for 2 years and develop. But if he does come back, I think they're still probably a tournament team. And he's the star of the team. And the offense probably runs through him. Because why would you not just have him play in the high post and like pass and move the ball all over the court and hit threes?
I think he could be a green room invite if he comes back next year. I mean, his game is so similar to Draymond Green's where he's just a stat sheet stuffer. And I think running the offense through him, he'll be able to do all that. And he can shoot threes. He's built for today's NBA. And even if you were to declare, I still think someone would take him, like you said, just because he fits everything you want out of somebody.
I mean, he would get drafted, like, no doubt. I mean, it's just a matter of does he want to get drafted higher. But, again, the biggest thing is does he think he's going to be a first-round pick? So your first-round pick, you get guaranteed money. And then you're, again, same deal as Mike, you're closer to the second contract.
Yes.
This is all that matters. But it's just a matter of if you can get guaranteed money right away.
Yes, I agree. And the other thing is I remember talking to, I forget if this was the same conversation we had with an NBA scout or a different one I had, but someone said, if you're Jonte and you could go like in the late first round and you go to a Warriors or a Spurs, a place where
they're going to develop you and you don't have the pressure of playing right away.
Yes, and you kind of fit, he'd fit in great on the Warriors or the Spurs, just one of those later teams that are more built to win now. Would you really turn that down? Because you're guaranteed, you have no pressure on you whatsoever.
Right.
And
you just develop and learn.
And you're going to get really good coaching. So I think there's a strong argument for him to go. I do think, though, that if he were to come back next year, I wouldn't be surprised if he's like SEC preseason player of the year.
Yeah.
I do think that they could find a way into the tournament. And I think this year was big for him because it was, even though his brother shadow was lingering.
He played without his brother. Yeah.
And he showed exactly what he could do. I think he'd be the only Porter in college basketball next year, aside from Sierra. But he wouldn't just be, he reclassified to play with his brother. That'd be like he came back to win.
Right.
And he'd be like fully his own person, everything in everyone's eyes.
Yeah. It is interesting. But then that's another thing to think about is like, not that he thinks him and Mike are going to play on the same team, but if he cared enough that he wanted to play with his brother and he reclassified, like, is he also going to care enough that he wants to, like, be in the NBA with his brother and, like, be in this next phase of his life with his brother? You know, like...
But does 1 year make a difference in that sense, too?
And this is not something that should factor in a decision or maybe won't, but, like, I can't imagine him, like, being in a locker room with, like, grown men. Like just like you talk to him and like he's a really nice guy. Like
he's really intelligent.
I wrote this whole story about like kind of he's smart and all these different interests and whatever, but like he just still seems like a kid. Like he really seems like a kid. Like I couldn't imagine him playing like in the NBA like and like getting yelled at by some guy who's been in the league for 10 years and like going up against like I don't even know who I would be most like. Imagine him having to play against like DeMarcus Cousins. Like it just doesn't seem like it would like it doesn't seem possible or like it should happen. But I could if he leaves, I would understand if he left.
Yeah, no, it's funny you say that because I think Mike has more of like the pro Hollywood look than Jonte. Mike's got his ears pierced. He's always posting on Instagram about him and new haircut and everything, and that's not Jonte at all.
Right.
And I can't even imagine, like, again, the Porters are both good kids, but, like, you think of the NBA nightlife or whatever, like, I can see Mike in that just because he kind of fits some of that.
Yeah, he's had the celebrity, he's used to the celebrity.
Yeah, Jonte, it's just like, what?
Yeah.
So...
I was looking at his Instagram recently, and, like, he posted, like, a picture just, like, him with, like, a fishing rod and, like, some little trout, and he's like, look at the fish I caught. Like, this is, like, 6 months ago. Like, this wasn't like this was, like, years ago. Like, he's like a child, and, like... And he should be. He's 18 years old.
Exactly, he's 18. So I would put. What would you
Which
put?
is another reason I think he would get picked high, or he would get picked, is
because he's already done a lot for his young age already. Yeah. So I don't know. What would you handicap the percentage of Jonte coming back at? I'm kind of 45, 55.
That he leaves.
I don't know what to say just because this whole thing has been bizarre. It's not like, with Zach Collins of the Trailblazers where, he really caught fire in the NCAA tournament and he became a lottery pick. He's a guy I could see if you put him at, like, the NBA draft combine, you put him in 5-on-5 and whatnot, maybe he could help his draft stock, but it's not like he's an unbelievable athlete like Mike.
And he's also inconsistent. He could tank in the combine or whatever.
And, how many times did he, like, dunk this year despite being, like, 7 feet? Like, 5, maybe?
Yeah.
So...
And never really authoritatively, just kind of like a...
Yeah, he had the one putback dunk that I remember like, whoa, I didn't know Jonte could do that. But yeah, that's the thing is that I just kind of look at it and be like, he still Again, he'll probably get taken this year. It's a matter of where, not if.
But he has a lot he can improve on.
Yeah, but I think the pros to coming back outweigh the cons.
Yeah. I would put it at 55% he comes back, I guess.
Yeah, that's about where I'm at.
Just because I think maybe the fact that he probably wouldn't be able to feel firmly that he would go in the first round would push him back. But I really have no idea.
Yeah, so that if it's 55% that way, so I guess we'll go to that's still more than half. So I guess now the most likely with quotation mark situation is both Porters are gone.
Yeah.
And this is a team that really we don't know a lot about. I mean, you look at I remember thinking of like the yearbook picture of like all the players on it, like going through X's in my head if it was not going to be back. You'd have from a year ago in November. That team would be without Blake Harris, Terrence Phillips, both Porters, C.J. Roberts, Cassius, Barnett, and Brett Rouse. If you want to count. So that's 8 guys that would have been gone within a year. And I look at that as a rebuilding team. I think it'd be a more unbelievable job, per se, if they were to make the tournament. I mean, I think the NIT would be an achievement. And we expect Missouri to land Courtney Ramey, the 2018 Webster Groves point guard. Konzo double-dipped the other day, right after the NCAA tournament loss, and watched E.J. Liddell, the top 2019 target who I profiled a couple months ago, and Ramey in one day. Charter jet from Peoria to Springfield.
Wow.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Long day. He's probably in the same boat, him and Chris Hollander, of lack of sleep with you.
Yeah.
But I think if they were to land Ramey, okay, well, you would bring in Xavier Pinson, Ramey, and you have Geis coming back. I think that's enough at point guard.
Yeah.
And you have Torrance Watson and Javon Pickett. Obviously, Torrance Watson was a huge scorer. Javon Pickett would have been a year removed pretty much from playing competitive basketball because he had a shoulder injury. So he's kind of like a wild card of what can he bring immediately.
Right. What does he look like?
Summer workout's going to be big for him. And then you add KJ Santos, who also was a year removed from playing organized basketball. He redshirted at junior college this year. He'll be a redshirt sophomore. He'll have 3 years to play at Missouri. The staff is really high on him. They think he could be an NBA guy when it's all said and done. And then you bring back Jeremiah Tillman. You bring back Kevin Puryear. The bench is going to be interesting because all the guys we just said are probably going to have to play immediately in some capacity. And that makes you wonder, all right, if Mike and Jonte both leave, they'll have scholarships to play with of adding more guys. There'll be a grad transfer of some sort. And see who else comes on the open market. But that's a team that I think all right, next year they might be bad, but next year they could be really good. Yeah. And after that, I don't really know.
It's hard to project. Yeah, I agree. Huge, basically, in short, huge for them if either Porter comes back. Bonanza if one of them comes back, or both of them come back. And without him, it's probably still a competitive team, but not a great team.
Yeah. What do you think of the coaching staff for next year? Do you think we still see all 3 assistant coaches?
I don't know. I think that the fact that they did such a good job kind of reorganizing the offense so quickly is a boost for Cornell Mann and Chris Hollander. But, Hollander, very nice guy, and he's done a really good job, it seems like. But I don't know if his resume it would be easy to sell as a D1 head coaching resume yet.
Yeah.
He was a year ago, he was at UMKC, you know what I mean?
Exactly. The Evansville job, which is his alma mater, is open right now. And I've been doing a little bit of homework on it. It seems like Hollander is a choice that fans really want as a potential option. But it's not something you've heard leaked from the administration or anything that he's on their radar.
Yeah.
With him, I think it's an interesting dynamic because, I think Chris is a lot funnier than people might realize. I think he's a guy that if he walked up to the podium, you might not realize, but I think he can win the press conference.
Yeah.
And he's very charismatic. But as you said, he's about 40, 41. He started coaching for a while ago, and he's been at Army, Evansville, Mississippi State, UMKC, and now Missouri. And I think his stock would be hotter in a year or two because he's in with all those St. Louis kids in 2019. Yeah. I think if he lands them and they do a lot that second year with potentially Ramey and then Watson, Santos, and potentially Liddell, McKinney, I think he'd be a really hot commodity on the market.
Yeah.
Against his alma mater, and he's coached and played there, so he's a different situation than the other candidate. Right. But And again, we're saying this, we have no clue what if he'd want the job or if he's even in the mix, but he's one that I think is kind of tougher to kind of tell if a job came open. Like, I think if the Army job came open, he'd have a really good shot at that. But he's kind of a tough one to get a finger on as to, all right, I could see him at this job or that job, because he's been a little bit of everywhere in a lot of different conferences. Cornell, I feel like I wouldn't be surprised if he got an offer.
Yeah, I could see that because he's had more Power 5 experience, and I agree. I think his resume is a little more of easy to sell right away than Hollander's.
I mean, he's been at Iowa State. He's been at like every directional Michigan school of Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, etc. And the other thing I think is big on him is that one of those lower schools that would hire him is looking for guys to find like diamonds in the rough. He recruited Cassius. Yeah. He landed Monty Morris to Iowa State. That's clearly his bread and butter to some degree. And he could sell that. He's a little older, more experienced. And I think the whole thing with him, I even wonder is, especially with the run Michigan's making, he was once a finalist for an assistant coaching spot on Michigan's staff. If they were to have a guy leave for elsewhere, I think he'd have a really good shot at getting that. Or Michigan State, where his cousin, Dwayne Stevens, is Tom Izzo's right-hand man, the associate head coach. And I think either one of those, all right, Michigan State's out, but Michigan's still alive. And if one of those coaches were to get plucked, I think that would be a big thing for him, and that would set him up to get an even better position for one. So he's one that I wouldn't be surprised if he left for like a better assistant coaching job or a lower tier head coaching job of some sort. But I think I haven't seen a job pop up yet either that I see like for sure. Yeah, and then Michael Porter Sr., I think, is completely dependent on his kids. Simply put.
I agree. I would agree with that. And what we write and what we do will also be dependent on his kids in the coming weeks. So we'll see. Anything else you want to talk about? Or are we good?
I guess we could touch on the women a little bit, right?
Disappointing. The Missouri women lost. I don't remember what the score is now, but they lost to Florida Gulf Coast. Mizzou was a 5 seed, which means Florida Gulf Coast was a 12 seed. Lost in the first round. First team in the Sophie Cunningham era to not even win a tournament game, and this was supposed to be the most talented team they ever had, and it probably was. I mean, I don't disagree with the notion that it was the most talented one, but just really they faced a Florida Gulf Coast team that led the country in 3-point attempts, and they only attempted 17 threes, but it was like the threat of them shooting the three. They just blew by them every time to the hoop, and they didn't have a single player who was 6 feet tall. I mean, like, physically, Mizzou should have won, but their post players got in foul trouble, and then they kind of lost the advantage they had, and then they were playing at a disadvantage to a team that is really good shooting from three and just was able to kind of maneuver around them. So, it's like, I wonder... You don't want to say it's too early to say this, but I guess, did they blow their shot with Sophie Cunningham? Like, she's the best player they've ever gotten. What is to say that they're going to have a deep run next year? This was the year, It seemed like, at least.
I agree. I was thinking about that earlier today. I feel like this is a bigger disappointment than the men's team because
it totally is.
The men had no depth. They had their best player wasn't fully healthy, and then you look at the women. They had probably the best starting five under Robin Pinchton. Right. One of them was going to be the best player on the court no matter what round they got into, unless they met UConn or something. And they had extra, Sierra Porter's knee, it's been known for a while, it's kind of going downhill.
Right.
Robin's common phrase, there's only so many miles left on it. Yeah. They lose Jordan Frericks, which is a huge loss.
Oh, CC, yeah.
Kayla Michael, formerly McDowell, graduated. She was always... I thought she was going to be even better than Jordan her freshman year, but she just had all those injuries, and it seemed like can only do so much down the line. But it's a team that brings back everybody but Jordan really next year, and I guess Hannah Schutz is the one that kind of maybe fill the void Jordan is leaving. But I just think it's a massive...
She's played pretty sparingly.
Yes, and she hasn't shown a ton of signs. She can shoot a three better than Jordan.
Yeah.
Jordan barely took any threes, but I don't really... I'm kind of on your line of thinking of...
did they blow their shot?
How, Robin Pinchton was being talked about as, Missouri's got to give her contract extension at the end of the year, and look at all she's done for the program. And it has come a very long way under her, in her 8 years or whatever it is. You got to give her that. But you just think about how will it be remembered if they only get to, the first round again next year, maybe, the round of 32, and it's you had the best player in program history I think the
but
loss.
Not just her, to be fair. I mean, like Sierra was pretty good in high school.
Jordan
too.
wasn't 1,000 point, 1,000 rebound.
I mean, like they had like a lot of talent, and like a lot of it was really just local. Like, and it just bust. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
and Robin is the one thing that she's been bad with as a coach is she hasn't been able to get like the elite St. Louis prospects.
Yeah.
Like I was telling someone earlier this year, like Nafisha Collier of UConn, she's lost Alicia Sutton of Texas, and now the next big one is Asia Blackwell, who's at Whitfield School, same as Torrance Watson. And I heard Louisville's really in strong for her. If Robin were to get like one of those players every few years, I think she could sustain her model of success where you get an alpha dog, you build around her, and can make an NCAA run. But really, you look at the way this season has gone. They were on the outside of the top 10 looking in the whole year, and they had 3 all-conference caliber players in Sierra, Jordan, and Sophie. It's a really, really sad ending for what, we thought there's a chance that they could maybe make the Elite 8.
Yeah.
And definitely the Sweet 16. That was the bar was the Sweet 16.
That's what Sophie said even.
Yeah, and next year, all right, they bring back Lauren Aldrich, who we've been told can score, but we didn't really see a ton of it. Sophie, Sierra, whose knee is really the biggest question with that. Amber Smith, who was
really good,
but inconsistent down the line. Yeah. And all these reserves that really didn't play much last year because of the depth they had in the front.
Supposed to be a loaded team. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have no idea. There's no real. I was looking it up. Robin hasn't really been wanting to take a transfer, or a grad transfer or anything in her time here. She's not really one that has any players transfer. I don't know who she gets or
they have one recruit from Iowa who's like a top 40 recruit.
Yeah, and she's not a post player though either. So it's someone on the current roster really has to step up and whatnot. So I don't know. I don't know what happens and how they look next year, but it'd be a disappointing ending to the Sophie era. Yeah,
well, I was disappointed because I didn't get to stay more time in California.
I felt the same way driving home from Nashville.
Yeah. Well, anyway, season's over, I guess. So we'll keep doing stuff though.
Lots to watch in the next few weeks.
Lots to watch in the next few weeks for sure with the Porters and Mizzou Football Pro Day coming up and whatnot. So if you don't already, please like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Mizzou Zone KC Star. And then we also have an app called Mizzou Zone, and that's where you can get all the Stars Mizzou coverage. But anyway, this is Aaron Reiss.
Alex Schiffer.
He's Alex Schiffer. He's the louder person. And we're signing off. Thanks for listening.